Chris Voss gave me a huge 1 year's worth of subscriptions on Patreon, and I'm grateful to him for bringing you today's video. Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin versus Judith, Sram, and Adrix and Nev. 2-lander with a rock, 3-lander actually. Yeah, the wheel refills us, so definitely keep. Draw another rock as well, which with a discard outlet we could get out for free with our commander. Got our black mana fixed with the rocks as well. We're up against a black player, so Felwar Stone will be able to tap down for mana. We've seen a turn 1 Sagada's Aid so far. Well, speaking of which, plenty of them in the deck, but there is the Psychic Frog. So I think we have to start with the Felwar Stone. And then next turn, we don't have any protection for our commander, but it might be worth getting it down so that we can start casting some spells at a discount. It is noteworthy that with this commander we don't have to play Norman Osborn first and then transform it. The Green Goblin does actually have a cost in the top right corner, so we can just play it for 4 mana straight from the command zone as the Green Goblin. Incubation Druid for the Adrix and Nev. This is a Final Fantasy card, but yeah, that's the commander, and immediately puts Flickering Ward onto there. In order to draw a card, can bounce this back to hand, so play it and bounce it for only 2 mana. A Rowan, Scion of War, always love the artwork for this. Okay, and a Mystic Confluence, one of the few counter spells in the deck. Let's shock down the land and cast the rear side of our commander. That is the Magic Online Omen Paths version of the Green Goblin. See another commander in the Twin Casters. Another Aura, I'm assuming this is an Aura's list. He's playing them at sorcery speed when he's got Sagada's Aid in play, but maybe he just wants to be attacking in. Bounces that Flicker spell as well. This is Crown of Awe, so protection from black and red, and then you can sacrifice it. Other creatures that share a type gain pro black and red as well, and immediately puts on the Flickering Ward again, and is staying at 7 cards in hand thanks to the card draw from this. This is now blue, so protection from Grixis at the moment, which is everything we have. Not swinging in with his commander though. The Rakdos player throws out a Pain's Reward. Each player may bid life, and the highest bid at the moment is 10. The bidding ends if the high bid stands. The high bidder loses life equal to the bid and draws 4 cards. I think we'll just say 0 and allow him to draw 4 here. I'm not getting into all this politicking stuff. Okay, it's now at 25. As it's gone around the table again, we're not going to raise it by any hell of a lot of life to pay just for the sake of drawing 4 cards. Alright, so he goes down to 15 just to draw those 4 cards from the Pain's Reward. But of course his spells cost that much less now. So I'm not sure who was raising the amount by that much. Maybe it was just this guy that was doing it himself. So his spells cost 25 less, thanks to Rowan. But he only has 1 colour and manages to make himself a Sunbird's Invocation. I suppose he could have just left the high bid at 10 if that's all he was going to cast. Alright, so the timing rules still apply on our mayhem stuff, but they do cost 2 less, so we're going to be able to get a free mana rock in here. Let's go for the Psychic Frog and discard the Arcane Signet straight away, putting a plus counter on the frog, and then cast the Signet for free because, like I said, it costs 2 less thanks to our commander, and that leaves us with 3 mana. So we could discard and reanimate the River Kelpie for 3 mana, which I don't mind doing. Otherwise we're just holding up Mystic Confluence to try and protect our board, which might be worth doing as well, but this early on, I mean it's only turn 4, I just want to set up. But the problem is this turn might look scary to our opponents, so they focus on us more. But if all goes poorly for the rest of the game, at least we got to show what you can do with this commander. So at 3 damage into, it has to be the Rakdos player if he's going to be that aggressive. Primal Empathy is an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card if you control a creature with the greatest power, otherwise put a plus counter on 1. Field of Ruin can blow up a land. It's amazing how many people are playing this still instead of Demolition Field. I see this one way more often than Demo Field, and I always point it out because it's well worth all of you knowing. Aegis of the Gods is going to give our opponent Hexproof, and then enchants that with Ward of Lights, giving it protection from red. And then decided to swing in with Sram to the left, who couldn't block. He's got protection from... oh no, he doesn't have protection from green. Decided to take the damage regardless. Sunbird's Invocation triggering for the first time off a Solemn Simulacrum. And there is an Urborg here, ready for that Cabal Coffers. Fixes our black mana nicely on the lands. And gets himself a free Firebrand Archer. So he needs to get lifelink on that as soon as he can, assuming that that interaction is in the deck. Elixir of Immortality is going to gain him a bit of life and shuffle his graveyard. So to that we each lose our first point of life to the Archer. And we've managed to leave our board intact until the next turn, which is good, so probably best to get Surly Badgersaw going then, I think. We can have anything discounted as long as we've got a sack outlet like this. So discard Surly Badgersaw and play it for 2 mana. And we draw a card thanks to the River Kelpie every time anyone casts a spell from a graveyard. And we've got more discard outlets in the form of Big Score and rummage effects like that. We're best discarding this to the discard outlet, not only to make this bigger, but to discount this when we cast it from the graveyard, so we'll do that. And that will actually pay for itself because it's going to make us some treasure. And when we discard, this is a 3/3, it can fight something. We'll fight the Firebrand Archer, I think. Don't want that getting out of hand. And then after that we're going to be looking at the Incubation Druid, I think. I'm guessing the fight is up to another creature. Yeah, we can choose not to fight anything, thankfully. So Big Score for only 2 mana. And then we'll discard the Deep Analysis, which we'll be able to pay 2 mana for to draw as well. Draw with the River Kelpie because we cast another spell from the graveyard. And that is a non-creature spell that we're casting, so Surly Badgersaw fights the Dork. And there's Chromatic Lantern, another colourless spell that we could play for free. There's all sorts of ways that we can play the Green Goblin, so maybe you could do an artifact build and get your rocks out for free like this. I apologise to my opponents, but yeah, it looks like we're starting to go off here. So discard both of the talismans, and I'm not looking to fight anything with the Badgersaw anymore, so play the talisman for free. I should note that we can play this for its top right cost for 2 mana this turn because we discarded it this turn, but also flashback is affected with this commander. Yet another way you can build it is as a flashback deck. So on a following turn we can still only pay 1 mana for this with the flashback cost. Anyway, it took us that long to get into another land. Let's continue with the Degeneracy and discard the Talisman. And again, we're not going to fight anything with the Badgersaw because it's got damage markers on it. Recast the Talisman from the bin for free, and that draws us into the Bone Miser. So let's play the Bone Miser by discarding it, and that is a plus counter onto the Badgersaw, which will mean, yeah, if we can discard more creatures, we'll be able to start fighting more. There's no 1 power creatures in play though. Play the Bone Miser for 3 mana instead of 5. And that draws us another card to the Kelpie, which is Nibelheim Aflame. Again, a flashback card that can wheel us a little bit, drawing us 4 cards. Okay, I want the Chromatic Lantern in play. Looks like we're just going to have to play the Island as our land for the turn. We're already behind on a land. Turn 5, and that's our 4th one. Discard the Lantern, and that's a non-creature spell, so the Bone Miser is going to draw us a card. And once again, offering up the fight with the Badgersaw, draws us into a Spymaster's Vault. Play the Chromatic Lantern for 1 mana, so that effectively pays for itself, as well as drawing us a card with the Kelpie again. There's Villainous Wrath. Okay, so this guy decides to scoop. We're not going infinite here, but it looks really, really bad, so I can understand. Let's play the Deep Analysis for not its flashback cost, for the Mayhem cost, which is 2 mana. And with Mayhem it will end up back in the bin again. So draw 2 cards and cast that from the bin. Again, the Kelpie draws us into Urborg, and we've got more rummage effects here. It took us a while to get into the lands, but that's good that we're starting to see those now. Right, so at this point we can discard and cast from the bin a Nimble Obstructionist to counter a trigger or activated ability, but that's about all we're doing. This has protection from only red, so I'm going to encourage him to block here, and then I'll take the commander into the right. I'm trying to dissuade my opponents from quitting on us outright. Draw a card with Psychic Frog because I landed damage onto a player. And alright, there's an Arcane Denial, so we can discard that and just straight up counter anything for only 1 mana, so that pans out quite nicely. It's amazing what a difference 1 card draw can make. Alright, so I think It's funny that you can discard to the cleanup step as well, and then maybe do some stuff at the end of turn. I don't know if you would actually get a chance to do that. Anyway, discarded a bunch of stuff, so the Bone Miser and all the other triggers on the stack are going to give us a chance to do stuff at instant speed if we could, but without the triggers giving us priority, I'm not sure we'd be able to. The Surly Badgersaw gives us some treasure for discarding lands. We're drawing cards and adding mana with the Bone Miser. So there is a bit of a combo you could do here where, similar to the Gitrog monster, if you just keep discarding the correct cards, it puts cards in your hand and you can just keep cycling through your deck. That's not the aim here, so it's not what we're looking to do. But making more treasure is good. Can we do anything with that black mana? Oh, we actually lose the black mana at every cleanup step, of course, so let's just get rid of... Yeah, I'll risk getting rid of the Urborg. I'll get rid of the Gyreet Sanitarium. So that makes a treasure and adds black mana with the Bone Miser, which will fizzle in a minute. Badgersaw doing a lot of work for us here. Noteworthy that the damage markers have been removed, even though our turn isn't over yet. So we could discard... is it a non-creature spell for fight? Yeah, we could do that here, but I'm just going easy on my opponents. We could carry on going off here, but I don't want anyone else to quit. Otherwise, I would have discarded another non-creature spell there, probably Mystic Confluence, paid 3 mana to cast it and draw 3 cards, and then fight, oh, I don't know, the Rowan or something like that. But then we would have had more cards in hand, discard more, and it would have just gone on forever. At least this way we've got Mystic Confluence held up as an actual counterspell. There's a Hall of Heliod's Generosity over here to grab back any enchantments from the bin. Doesn't have too many basic planes into the Emeria though. Darksteel Mutation, trying to deal with our commander. Let's just discard the Arcane Denial, I think, because he can afford the Mystic Confluence at the moment. I thought the deck might be a bit irritating like this, so I actually didn't put too many counterspells in the list. I think these are the only 2 that are in hand. We'll kill off the Solemn Simulacrum with the Surly Badgersaw, and he can draw a card with that. Then we're going to draw a card to Bone Miser for discarding the Arcane Denial, and there is a Mithril Coat for us. So we could protect our commander with that. That won't help us against the Darksteel Mutation though, so we'll use our single blue mana to get rid of that from a treasure token, and end up drawing into Emmet Selk, which is going to discount our spells from the graveyard even further. So with that on the stack, he's looking to do something else, which means he won't be able to afford the Mystic Confluence. A Minimus Containment is fine. Drawing more cards. It might be that he has a Swords or a Path or something, but we're making him use 3 removal spells here, so it's fine. Let's go for discarding that first. This is why it's so huge that you have a discard outlet with this deck, because you just basically discount things for little to no effort. Draw a card with the Bone Miser, draws us into another discard outlet in Chainer, which is actually only the second one we've seen with all this card draw. Mystic Confluence from the bin is 3 mana with a 2 mana discount, and should we look at maybe killing off some of these auras? We could bounce this back to kill this one off. This has protection from Grixis, as we said before, so maybe bounce Sunbirds, leave the Rowan alone, bounce this as well. Yeah, we're going to cantrip with the River Kelpie here anyway. So counter the Minimus Containment, bounce that, and bounce the Rowan as well. I forgot you can only bounce creatures with that, so we can't get rid of the Sunbird's Invocation. Pay the mana, and draw into Will of the Jeskai, another wheel. So SRAM is still drawing a couple of cards here, but seems as though everything is getting countered. And the only means of making the mana for the single mana that we would need for the Mithril Coat is to make more treasure by discarding... Yeah, we'd have to get rid of the Urborg in order to make the mana we need. Maybe do that during the Rakdos player's turn so that we can make use of red mana for something like the Laughing Mad or the Nimble Obstructionist. It all depends on what our opponents are looking at doing here. Usually in discard decks it's difficult to actually play the payoff cards like the Badgersaw and the Kelpie and Bone Miser because they're so expensive, but in a deck like this getting a 6 mana discount on those makes a hell of a difference apparently, as we're seeing here. The white player draws a couple of cards. We draw one from the Arcane Denial, drew into a Bitter Triumph off the Arcane Denial. Wouldn't have minded seeing a land so we don't have to discard Urborg to make mana. There we go, a Blasphemous Act. Should we see if he gets a creature off the Sunbird's Invocation? Because he might wipe out his own creature here off the Blasphemous Act. But here's where the Mithril's Coat is going to come in handy. It's a shame that we can't keep hold of the Mystic Frog, but we do have a Chainer. There's a Combustible Gearhulk, so it is going to go down, and we'll just give him the card draw, I think. Or we could counter it with the Nimble Obstructionist, but best to hold on to that for something more frightening, I think. Decides to point it at us, fancying himself getting some damage on us. So we'll allow him to draw the 3 cards so that we can keep our 37 life. Let's discard then and get rid of the Urborg in order to make that mana we need. Might actually be able to buff up the Frog enough to survive this, which I didn't consider until now. And we need to discard the Mithril Coat to it anyway, so that pans out nicely. Gonna buff it up to 14 toughness with this, get rid of Mithril Coat. Badgersaw wants to fight something, there's nothing worth fighting here. Draw another card with Bone Miser. And finally, get to see another land. So play the Mithril Coat from the bin onto our commander. Draw a card to Kelpie for doing that, and that's another loot effect. Right, so we're keeping our engine and the commander, but we're losing out on the discard matters stuff, unfortunately. There is mass reanimation in the deck, so we could get back into it, but let's allow that through then. I could have carried on with like Laughing Mad and stuff like that and tried to get more effects off, but we end up getting River Kelpie back with Persist anyway, and like I said, I want to be respecting my opponent's time as best I can. So draw a card when it enters, because it entered from the graveyard, and an Electric Revelation as well. We lost our mana generators though, so just have to allow all this to happen. We're still holding up the Obstructionist if we need it, and we can actually give Flying to the Frog to start dealing a bunch of damage to this guy. That is a Vicious Rumours. 1 damage to each opponent, and each opponent discards a card. Mills. That's fine. Actually enables us if anything. But we do have to worry about timing restrictions still, so I really don't think we need this Wheel of Fortune at this point. We'll just get rid of that. Although I suppose we could discard everything in hand. What have we got? We could discard 10 cards to make this a 23 power creature, then cast this, and then discard the 7 cards, puts it up to 30. We could get rid of this guy next turn, and then still cast things from the graveyard. Yeah, alright, I think I'm going to look at doing something as obnoxious as that. Put our opponents out of their misery. So let's get rid of the Chainer, seeing as how we've managed to keep our discard outlet. Replaying Rowan, see if he actually gets something off the Invocation this time. He does, he gets a Theatre of Horrors, which we're not going to worry about just yet. And round to our turn, can we get rid of the white player? Well, there's a Sol Ring we can just get out for free. I'll just play the island here, we've got all the colours that we need thanks to the Chromatic Lantern. So discard Sol Ring to the Psychic Frog and play it. Alright, and that whites the board as well. Archfiend of Ifnir will discard and play for 3 mana, and then everything we discard from that point on is going to wipe our opponent's boards very efficiently, so then we don't even need to give Flying to the Frog. The white player is still holding up priority, so it might be that he has a Swords or a Path still, but now that that's in play we can just do pretty much everything at instant speed. Discard more with the Frog, puts a plus counter on the Frog and minus counters on our opponent's stuff. Protection won't protect him here because it's not targeting. Nightscape Familiar we draw into, probably worth getting down for a single black mana because it's going to pay for itself straight away. Discard the Emmet Selk. Pretty much everything we discard here, if we want to play it this turn, we're going to be able to, I think. Alright, and the white player scoops to that because he loses his commander. So at this point we might as well just turn in sideways then. I think we would have been able to discard enough and wheel enough to buff this to one-shot the white player. And yeah, there we go. Surprisingly, the Rakdos player who drained all his life was the last one to go down. But yeah, the Green Goblin is very, very good apparently. The fact that you can play it as the Green Goblin from the command zone makes a massive difference. But being able to keep your discard outlets in play for an entire game is just way too good. Now I'm not sure what to do with the channel recently. Do you want to see really powerful commanders like this and just have me build a bunch of different methods into the deck? Like you could make it a somewhat colourless artifact deck So you're playing a bunch of stuff for free, as we saw here. You could make it a creature reanimator list specifically, a spellslinger deck, a storm deck, something like that. Is that something that you want me to do, or do you want me to focus mainly around all the different commanders in a set like I normally do? Let me know regardless. Massive thank you to the patrons for their financial support of the channel. I'm TribalKai. Thank you for watching.